We have a new presidential candidate. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a longtime anti vaccine activist, filed paperwork Wednesday to run for president as a Democrat. Kennedy filed a statement of candidacy on Wednesday to challenge President Biden, who has yet to formally announce his bid for re-election in the 2024 Democrat primary. The Associated Press reported Kennedy had launched a fundraising campaign last month on social media to help him decide whether to run for president. "If it looks like I can raise the money and mobilize enough people to win, I'll jump in the race," he tweeted last month. "If I run, my top priority would be to end the corrupt merger between state and corporate power that has ruined our economy, shattered the middle class, polluted our landscapes and waters, poisoned our children, and robbed us of our values and freedoms. Together we can restore America's democracy." Kennedy, who is the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy and son of former Senator Robert F. Kennedy, heads the Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine organization that often promotes unproven theories about the safety of vaccines. It has received strong criticism for its misinformation. The organization also doubled its profits during the COVID-19 pandemic, when many people grew hesitant over the safety and efficiency of COVID-19 vaccine, according to the Associated Press. Kennedy faced repercussions from social media platforms about his promotion of conspiracy theories about COVID-19 and vaccines. Instagram removed his account in 2021 after he shared debunked claims about the virus or vaccines. I'm not going to say the full name of COVID. Meta also took down the Children's Health Defense Facebook page last August for repeatedly violating the platform's policies on COVID-19 and vaccine policies. Author Marianne Williamson also announced a bid to run in the Democratic race for the White House last month. I started stuttering there because the Hill has some spelling errors and grammatical errors, I should say, that sometimes trip me up. So there's a lot to unpack here. The first part is that Kennedy is someone who's never held office before. And actually, it's kind of interesting that I'm noticing that there's like a trend now where the people most likely to challenge Biden are those that are not currently in the Congress or other elected officials, because they're really worried about their careers most likely. But the vaccine stuff is I'd say arguably the worst issue, as far as, like, I disagree with RFK Jr. on that entirely. But there's a difference between him and a lot of the Republicans on that. He's someone who fundamentally does not believe in the effectiveness of vaccines. He's been pushing anti-vax stuff since at least the early 2000s. So when the major virus that we had showed up 2 years ago, he pretty much just stood firm to his position. Now, of course, I don't condone spreading misinformation. But like I said, I think people should be able on their own to say, "Hey, I don't agree with this. I don't believe this. You're not showing me any proof." That's just my position. So I would not back him on the basis of any of the anti-vaccine stuff, because, like I said, it's not a position I really want to promote or get behind. But it's still something that I think makes him interesting, because it's not coming from a place of, like being against this is hot right now, I can make some money. It's someone who genuinely believes vaccines are ineffective, however incorrect they may be. So I can at least respect the sincerity of his position on the issue. But where he's interesting for me is where he talks about his top priority will be to end the corrupt merger between state and corporate power that has ruined our economy, shattered the middle class, and polluted our landscapes and waters, poisoned our children, and robbed us of our values and freedoms. Now, any person in the progressive space, and RFK Jr. used to be in it. He interviewed Bernie, for example. He was a supporter of his. But anyone who's been in this space knows that we talk about how the U.S. is oligarchy. Elections are determined by big money. The person with the most money usually wins. That a lot of these politicians, when they get into office, they are working for the corporations that help them get into office versus the people that voted them there. It's just a really disgusting system where a lot of people who enter this stuff are corrupt, and they are purposely doing the bidding of their donors as opposed to their actual constituents. So if he runs and mainly discusses that, I'd be very enthusiastic about backing him. Although I'm more tied to Marianne Williamson just because her positions in general are more defined based on the basis of her running for president once before and running again and like releasing full platforms. So I would still stick with her. I'm just saying that he's someone who, if he were to win, I would not. I'd be more excited for him than for Biden. Like for me, it's Williamson, RFK Jr., and then Biden. Now let's talk about why he's probably not going to win. Besides run against an incumbent president, the biggest reason is that when you get news stories and really anything that's considered controversial by the candidate, they tend to take what they think is the most controversial and run it through the ground. So they won't talk about him being anti-war. They won't talk about him wanting to help with the environment. They won't talk about him. They especially won't talk about him calling out the U.S. oligarchy. What they will discuss, nonstop, repetitive, day and night, if they even acknowledge that he's running at all, is, oh my God, anti-vaxxer. Oh my God, anti-vaxxer. And, it's like there's a certain amount of coverage. I understand that issue would gain him. But again, they do the same thing to Williamson with the spiritual stuff. And, pretty much anyone that's running and is like perceived as being a threat to Biden, like someone who, if you gave enough attention to and enough support to, could actually defeat him, they're going to just sit there and focus on whatever they think is like an unappealing aspect of that person as to distract from like other issues. And in the case of RFK Jr. and in Marianne Williamson's case, to just completely ignore altogether anything she actually says. So he's mostly going to be done in by that. I don't think he'll have the same problem with name recognition. But what's very fascinating about him is that he's someone who, because you do have some Americans that just did not like the vaccine. They were not a fan of what they felt were the Democrats' overprotectiveness on the virus. And that's why you have people that, go and prop up DeSantis, a guy who is just as bad as Trump in pretty much every way, but was as pro corporation as you can possibly get. But because he like stood up against the mandates, he called it the Faucian system. They praise him and worship him. So what I'm getting at is he could actually elicit a larger number of Republican support than probably anyone else running. And I know that's not like a basis to, for like why you should vote for somebody in Democratic primary, because most Republicans vote for Republicans. But what I'm getting at is a lot of people, including conservatives, are empathetic when something happens to them. So like a lot of people, for example, they saw they couldn't go to work, or they were restricted from doing something that they otherwise did in the years before, and that really upset them. So to see a Democrat, RFK Jr. running as this anti-vaccine person who's probably not going to be as restrictive to what they view as their rights as, someone else, they might support him. So he's someone who is very interesting. I have my disagreements with him, but a lot of his other positions are appealing to me. And it really is sad that they're not going to be talked about. God, I can't believe we're really having a Kennedy challenge an incumbent president again. I just wish he had ran for the I think it was back in 2008 or 9. He was rumored to be running for the Senate in New York. I wish he had done that before, because then he could actually have some government experience. But I guess in the case of him, it's probably more so having to do with the fact that a lot of people in that party that are in office just are afraid to even contemplate trying to challenge Biden. No matter how much they disagree with him, no matter how much he's unpopular, they know that challenging an incumbent president, you might as well be doing rocket science. It is very difficult. So I think he has a place in this race. I can't say that I think he'll win, but I do believe it's going to be harder to ignore him than Williamson, because he has the built-in, family legacy dynasty thing. And like I said, he's I guess I'll put it this way. I'm normally not a fan of of family dynasties like whatsoever. Like I just prefer when people run and then they tell you what their positions are. But he's really not like from what I've seen of his statements so far as and this could change because we're very early into his prospective campaign, but he doesn't really talk about my dad or my uncles or anything. He just kind of just discusses the issues, and I like that because in a lot of ways he is his own person. Um, so that's why I said if he were to hypothetically win the primary and actually advance to the general, I think it would be very. It would make for an election that was substantive. I'll put it that way. You won't hear any crap about restoring the soul of America or any other trash that Biden talks about. You'll actually have someone who says, "Hey, these are the issues I'm running on. This is the stuff I support." And I like when even people who disagree with me, as long as they talk about issues, I'm fine with them running. I'm almost always on board with them getting involved because that's the reason you enter any race, because you want to discuss issues. So I look forward to seeing what happens with him during this primary.